Hey everyone, Stephen Green here. Stephen in 60 seconds or so. We've got Sam Vakili, investment and retirement planner, back with us. Sam, I have heard that political views aside, Donald Trump, very good for the economy. Their economy is linked to ours because, well, they're kind of our neighbor. They're very, very closely linked. I've heard he's good for the economy. What do you think about that?
It's a really good question, really deep question, and I'm going to try and cover it as quick as I can. So again, like you said, political views aside, there are some pros and cons in this scenario. He's done things, especially for the U.S. side of things, that have been really good, especially at the beginning of his term. But from the same token, he has made a fair bit of moves that aren't necessarily that great. Especially, you're starting to see everything that's occurring with the tariffs. And so I guess that's the top of mind comment. So I'll start with that. Whenever a tariff is imposed on a country, theoretically, it is not supposed to be very good for said country. Hence why we're seeing a trade war, so to speak, between Canada and the US. And it's kind of become a domino where there's a bit of this back and forth, this jousting where, US does it and then China has to come in and try and do something to offset it. And we just saw that over the last 2 or so days. Essentially, the Chinese government has tried to devalue their currency. And I'm not going to get into all the semantics as far as what that is or how that occurs. But the reason why you do that traditionally is to try and offset what's going to happen with exports and imports. By devaluing the currency, you've now made it more likely that people will want to buy those products because it's cheaper to the other countries. And this works globally, not just with the US versus Canada, but they want to offset some of their exports so that other countries can come in and pick up some of the slack.
So I'm hearing we're gonna have a bit of a chess game going on here. Like I'm hearing, for example, and it's been in the news, the Cami plant down in, I think, Ingersoll, Woodstock. They've got huge shutdowns going on, right? You've got the issue with Huawei recently where government's doing stuff to them. It just sounds like it's going to be a bad chess game going back and forth. So
yeah, you're seeing it with a lot of companies. Apple's one of the big companies that we all know about. They'll be affected, or really any cell phone maker, because whenever we try and import things from, other countries that have to go through China, it increases the cost, or at least on the US side. I shouldn't say we necessarily, but especially for imports to the US, those products are coming from overseas. So like you said, that back and forth puts a bit of stress on the countries. It puts stress on the people producing it. Right now there's a big conversation around agriculture in the US. If China does not import as much US agriculture, that puts a lot of stress on the farmers, right? And then that becomes the domino that turns into, okay, well, how does that affect underlying or, earnings for these companies? And then how does that affect stock price? And then how does that affect, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why this back and forth is a little bit dangerous. And you keep hearing conflicting views between who's actually behind those decisions. I think I read an article an hour ago that was saying, is it really a decision that's unilaterally coming from the White House? Or is it something that is more so Trump decision, or more so a Trump decision that isn't necessarily being supported by everybody? So it's going to be interesting, but I will always caution one thing. So it may seem doom and gloom, and I get it. We've all been, we've had this conversation year in and year out, but if you go back to 2014, 2015, we've had these types of conversations with different issues. 2014 was the oil crisis. 2015 was the Greek sovereign debt issue. 2016 was, the whole Brexit and the election with Trump and how that was going to actually play out. And we still haven't even actually seen how Brexit is going to play out. The last year has really been trade wars. So there's always something that's top of mind. There's almost never a period where you're going to get utopian fairy tale, everything's going great, but that's why you have to adjust accordingly.
All right, so we're just going to have to deal with our iPhones are just going to be more expensive. It is what it is. Pay the money, and that's it. Pretty much.
You got it.
All right. So you heard it here first, folks. That's the reason why your iPhones are more expensive. Sam, thank you so much. Great having you, and we'll talk to you again, okay?
Take care.